The last lesson this morning comes from the Acts of the Apostles. It is the story of the first Pentecost, the coming of the Holy Spirit. Listen to God's word. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. And suddenly from heaven there came a sound like the rush of a violent wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. Divided tongues as of fire appeared among them, and a tongue rested on each of them. And all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages as the Spirit gave them ability. Now there were devout Jews from every nation under heaven living in Jerusalem, and at this sound the crowd gathered and was bewildered, because each one heard them speaking in the native language of each. Amazed and astonished, they asked, "Are not all of these who are speaking Galileans? And how is it that we hear each of us in our own native language? Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome. Both Jews and proselytes, Cretans and Arabs, in our own languages, we hear them speaking about God's deeds of power." All were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, "What does this mean?" But others sneered and said, "They're filled with new wine." But Peter, standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed them. "People of Judea and all who live in Jerusalem, let this be known to you and listen to what I say. Indeed, these are not drunk, as you suppose, for it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. No, this was spoken through the prophet Joel. In the last days it will be, God declares, that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Even upon my slaves, both men and women, in those days I will pour out my Spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show portents in the heaven above, and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and smoky mist. The sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood, before the coming of the Lord's great and glorious day. Then everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." Here ends the reading from the Acts of the Apostles. May God add blessing and understanding to the reading and hearing of God's most holy word. Invisible strength. Amazed, perplexed, astonished, bewildered. Part of the message that the children are talking about in the stories of faith is that, if you will, and we've used this image before, but we're going to make it more visible today. And is that there's a thread, there's an invisible string that binds us together, that ties us together as people of faith. And the strings at times, and I use this image often at times when I do a funeral or a memorial service. I used it this week for Bertha Carr, and also when the Dorothy storms. That in our lives we have sometimes bright, vibrant colors, and we recognize that, but sometimes they're not always bright. Let's be honest, that there are some of the dim and somber side of life, if you will, but they all weave together. And we're going to put a visible twist on the invisible string this morning here today. And so let's get tied up in the power of God's love. Isn't that the power of God's Spirit that gets us thinking and doing in different ways? So Ezekiel said, "Can these bones live?" He asked the Lord, and the Lord said, no, the question was to Ezekiel. The Lord said, "Can these bones live?" And Ezekiel said, "You know." And we get the image of bones knitting to bones, and eventually the breath comes in them. And that was a sign of hope to the people of Israel in that day and time. The other is the The sons and daughters are going to prophesy, and that's from the prophet Joel. This is about where we thought we would go with this.
You go, girl. You go.
I think you get the intent behind this. Okay. They may get, I think the deacons in the back are having way too much fun. Because nobody's looking at them. Join with me in this thought, okay? As you hold these strings, and we're reminded from the prophet Joel that sons and daughters are going to prophesy. Think of the voices of the young in our today that are lifting voices that want to challenge assumptions and challenge the way things are done and challenge that there be hope instead of fear. Think of that. Ponder that. And also carry with you, where do you see lived out? Where do you see lived out the gifts of love and justice, truth and beauty? Where do you see those? And how do you give those gifts a sense of vision or presence or revelation? It's not all up to the other person. We all fit in this. And because we all fit in this, it is the power of the invisible strength. So in the best sense, if you kind of pull on one, you can kind of follow some of the colors and see where the connections are. And some of them you might not, because it's wound around a few people along the way. But isn't that the way it is? Isn't that the way it is? Sometimes the connections are very visible and sometimes they are invisible. And that's just exactly what the children were talking about. The power of God's presence and grace and the power of the Holy Spirit that is more often than not seen. You know, like a tongue of fire or a descending dove or necessarily wind. But it is seen in acts of truth and beauty and love and justice. Same gifts that we all want for our own lives, and in some capacity, I believe, are already woven into our lives. New life, hope, the opportunity that each day is a new day. Whatever was past is past, the new day emerges, and in that is great joy. And in that, for the early church, let's go back to the early church, the first Pentecost, and people hearing languages that they didn't understand, but now they hear their own language and they wonder, why is this? How is this? Why? How? And we can ponder the why and how too. Let's just go on. It happened, and the world was changed because people heard the good news, the gift of grace, that the light of God was revealed in Jesus. And because of that, we're here. Because of that love and light, we go forth. And because of that love and light, we can embrace the gifts of truth and love and justice and hope and share it with the world. It's the gift our children give us. It's a gift we give to one another. It's a gift that we're called to share out in the world. Strings visible or not. And in that, indeed, God is glorified.